Mr. Kucinich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When the Higher Education Act was signed into law 30 years ago, its intent was to open the doors of college education to those who could not have previously attended due to financial constraints. Perkins loans, Pell Grants, work-study programs, and other financial aid programs established by HEA have been a great success, helping students from all backgrounds follow their dreams. Unfortunately, when the Act was reauthorized in 1998, thousands of students who had once been convicted of a drug crime became suddenly ineligible for this crucial financial aid. Effectively, the doors of higher education were abruptly closed to these students, ironically blocked by the very act whose intent it is to help students gain a higher education. Some effects of this HEA drug provision are clear. Since 1998, almost 200,000 students have been denied financial aid, and thousands of others remain uncounted, deterred from applying by the belief that past convictions could render them ineligible. Beyond those numbers, we find a pernicious and discriminatory effect. Denying financial aid to students hurts only those who need it, namely children of low-income families. Students from higher-income households may not need financial aid or can afford the legal representation necessary to avoid a drug conviction. And according to the Sentencing Project, African Americans, who comprise about 12% of the U.S. population and 13% of all drug users, account for more than 53% of those convicted of drug offenses. The disproportionate racial impact of drug law enforcement should not be compounded by spreading its effects into the realm of higher education because of this law. Erecting a barrier to higher education, as the current law does, is counterproductive. Denying an education to offenders based on past mistakes only increases the likelihood they will repeat those mistakes again. According to the Correctional Education Association, offenders with at least 2 years of higher education are substantially less likely to be arrested again. Furthermore, it costs $26,000 per year to lock someone up, but it costs $6,185 a year. That's the average cost of a four-year public college, says the College Board. This provision pushes those who could benefit the most from education towards a cycle of recidivism. Higher education should be the gateway to a better future for citizens, their communities, and America. Instead, the HEA drug provision amounts to a dangerous double jeopardy, punishing young people both through the legal system and, again, by denying them critical educational opportunities. This provision is destructive to our children and our future. Denying students the opportunity for a higher education does not solve the nation's drug problem, it does not provide drug treatment, and it poisons the intent of the Higher Education Act. We must work to ensure the nation's war on drugs does not become a war on educational opportunity. Education is the single most important tool we have to lift families from poverty and strengthen our nation. It must not be used to punish those who need it the most. I yield back.
Yields back. Ms. Woolsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Scott Davis Payne Clark Amendment answers the basic question: should we help students with drug convictions stay in school where they can learn the tools they need to succeed, or should we throw them out of school for their mistake? Hundreds of thousands of low and middle income students depend on federal student aid to stay in school. For these students, taking away their student aid is the same as kicking them out of school. When this policy penalizes poor but not wealthy students, it is a bit like discrimination. For students who use or sell drugs, our nation's judicial system, not educational system, must decide their fate. I'm pleased that this amendment is supported by a wide range of health, civil rights, education, religious, and criminal justice groups. I urge my colleagues to join these groups in supporting this amendment to end this shameful policy. I yield back.
The gentleman is yield back at time. The gentleman has asked to withdraw his amendment. If there is no objection.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Scott.
Mr. Chairman, because of the monetary aspects of this, I'm forced to withdraw the amendment, but because of the arguments made, I would hope that we would be able to address this issue at other points during the process before this bill becomes law.
I appreciate what the gentleman has said, and let me just say something on this. I think that Mr. Scott and the others who've spoken make some very important points about how this punishment plays out. But I would be remiss if we didn't give a tip of the hat to Mr. Souter, working with others who recognized the error in this legislation when it was first passed. A lot of people voted for it, cheered it, and never looked back. Fortunately, he looked back and realized that a mistake has been made. In that year prior to changing the law, 21,720 students, I think, were considered ineligible for those reasons. Midway in the next year, when we changed it midway through, that number was reduced to 13,769. In the most recent year, 7 and 8, we're now down to 4,793. I still don't agree with the law, but I just want to acknowledge some persistence on the part of Mr. Souter to make sure that the law was in fact operating in a fashion which, when it was originally offered, many people thought it should be operated in. I didn't agree with it then either, but that persistence has made a substantial difference. I also assume, I guess, as people become aware of the law, it's made a difference in some of their behavior. Again, I have serious disagreements with the law, but I like to just recognize the fact that what could have turned out to be an injustice far beyond what was envisioned was avoided because of his work. Without objection, the amendment is withdrawn, and Mr. Souter is recognized for
I have
two amendments
that I'm not sure how they're categorized. I gave you my copy. One is originally offered by the now chairman to have a posting by the college about what's in the that they can lose their loan if they get convicted of a drug crime.